Man, things have been fucking wild lately. I just got out of one of the most powerful meditations that I've done in either a long time or just my entire life altogether. And I wasn't even intending to meditate, but I'm really just trying to play with just how fascinating, the mind can't tell the difference between what is real and what's imagined, which is why meditation is so cool in and of itself, right? Like, you can visualize yourself experiencing something, have thoughts, have feelings attached to it, and then you attract that to you because that's just how, like, you make real in physical reality that which you imagine, right? And I was in a meditative state listening to pretty dope music. It was like dance music and stuff, and it was so fascinating because, like, what I've really been working on is stepping into the unknown and allowing myself to expand my sense of identity, and that has to do with the unknown, right? Because what I'm doing is stepping out of comfort and familiarity and more into what it is that I would like to experience. And so it was so real. It really was. It was such a fascinating thing. And I believe this thing to be true because this form of meditation is what I've been doing for a while now. It hasn't been consistent, but every time that I've done it, it's been real enough, right? Um, and so what's fascinating here is that what I'm realizing about myself is that when it comes to stepping into the unknown, when it comes to allowing myself to expand what it is that I believe is possible for myself to experience in life, um, the comfort and the familiarity that come with the old identity that I've been attached to my entire life, it's almost as if there is somewhat of a ceiling that I find like it's kind of like it's like, all right, well, this is the unknown you're stepping into. You've never been in this space before, and there is a known that part of me had and maybe somewhat still has remained uh, attached to, right? And that's kind of like the boundaries of the old ego state. Like, oh, this is what Chris thinks, this is what Chris feels, this is what Chris does, and that's it. And there's a lot of comfort and familiarity based around that. Anything outside of that, part of me starts to think, well, that's not authentic for me. That doesn't feel right to me, right? It's not that it doesn't feel right. It's more so that it doesn't feel comfortable and familiar. And familiar being a word that I'll look at here specifically, familiar originating from familial, right? Which that goes back to the FOO, the food that we fight, the family of origin, right? So here's the fascinating thing to me about this whole game of so-called authenticity. What I've learned about it is that it's based a lot in subconscious and unconscious origins. I guess I'll just use the word. I don't know what other word I was going to use for it, but I'll just use that word, right? And so it's like, oh, wait a second. Authenticity doesn't really have the roots that I thought it did, right? I thought that authenticity had so much more to do with some rich and meaningful fabric than it actually does. Authenticity has more to do with comfort and familiarity based on childhood conditioning and patterns repetition, compulsion, the repeating of patterns, unconscious, subconscious fabric, rather than like actual meaning, you know? Sometimes we don't do things not because it's not authentic to us, but more so because it's not comfortable and familiar to us. And again, comfort and familiarity originating in, well, comfort, of course. Comfortable because you've just been doing it for fucking ever with your eyes closed. But familial, let's look at familial for a second, right? Because there's the word familial, which of course originates in family, family of origin, right? Um, I want to introduce individuation and differentiation here. For people, and I've been in this boat before, for people that did not get healthy individuation and differentiation early on in life, it's likely that those people ended up enmeshed with their family of origin, with their, you know, their parents, their sibs, all that stuff, right? And so, because they never individuated away from their family of origin, and instead they created an identity based around their family of origin instead of individuating and creating their own wholesome, solid sense of self, right? They just continued doing things based around the attachment that they have in the enmeshment to their family of origin. And that's where their idea of authenticity came from, right? Anybody can do anything. And that's the reality of it, right? What you think that you want might be based around what it is that's actually just comfortable and familiar to you. And it actually has nothing to do with what you think authenticity or inauthenticity is, right? Like whenever you say, oh, it just feels right for me to do that. Or, oh, it just does not feel right for me to do that. Therefore, I'm not going to do that. It feels right for me to do that. Therefore, I'm going to do that. It doesn't feel right for me to do that. Therefore, I'm not going to do that. It actually doesn't have anything to do with authenticity. Or I think that it doesn't. I believe, based on what it is that I've been learning through what it is that I've done in terms of work and healing and everything, what it has more to do with is the dynamic of comfort and familiarity that an individual has been conditioned by based in their family of origin and whether or not they had, well, I mean, in this case I'm talking specifically about not having had the healthy individuation and differentiation early on in life, right? So I'm really sitting with this and I'm like wow, like this whole game of authenticity, people do and don't do based around authenticity slash inauthenticity, right? But what if authenticity and inauthenticity is really just a matter? Because like if you want to do something, right, but you're enmeshed with your family system, your family of origin, right, and that enmeshment is based on fucking shit from 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago, right? So it's really way back there, right? In other words, you have not done the work to individuate and differentiate and establish your own sense of self and identity that is separate from them, right? So if what it is that you believe is authentic to you and what it is that you believe that is inauthentic to you is actually based around them and that because you're attached to that system based on enmeshment, then it's really not a matter of authenticity or inauthenticity. What it's a matter of is that you or the individual has not yet individuated and differentiated, right? And what it is that you think you want, what it is that you think you need, what it is that you think you like and dislike, your morals, your values, everything that constitutes you as an individual based around your identity is really just super motherfucking glued to that system. It has nothing to do with authenticity. Like there's a decent fucking chance that that individual doesn't even fucking know themselves because they haven't taken the time to be by themselves and to develop an actual sense of intrinsic understanding, right? They have based their worth and their understanding of themselves extrinsically. They have attached their worth to things and people outside of them rather than, validating themselves, approving of themselves, and having that based on them, right? And so I'm going to tie this back into stepping into the unknown and really looking at a person's capacity to challenge themselves and to do things that are different as to experience a different life, because that's what is part that's where I'm at in life now. I'm stepping into the unknown. um, I'm really developing my own sense of self that is separate from everything that I was um, raised by, right? Um, and it's fascinating too because like there are things that I want to do. I'm not going to say what it is, but or what they are. There are things that I want to do that a big part of me is like, well, that goes against your morals, and it's like, where the fuck does that come from? And I'm realizing that it actually doesn't come from me. It doesn't. It comes from everything that I've learned to believe, everything that I've been conditioned by. And this is where the splitting of the organism comes into place, right? I've used this physical analogy slash metaphor in other videos, right? Grew up this way, and now I am learning this, right? To individuate and differentiate, and to separate myself away from every motherfucking entity that, well, I'm seeking people that are individuated and differentiated. And I'm learning to really steer very clear from people that are enmeshed and that are sucked together and, you know, don't really have an established sense of self. So it's very fascinating. I might make a part two to this because there's literally so much to talk about here. But let me just end off by saying this. I'll make this video a little bit longer. Um, for people that are not individuated and are not differentiated, and quite honestly still enmeshed with the family of origin that they came from, um, to a very large degree, they are still living in survival, placing their worth externally. Started with mommy and daddy, goes into friends and romantic partners. They're still trying to please mommy and daddy through friends and romantic partners, right? Maybe they're trying to change or fix mommy and daddy through their relationships, whatever it may be. Individuating and differentiating gets a person away from that. And this is what I'm talking about, stepping into the unknown for a lot of people, right? Stepping into the unknown is like, all right, listen, you don't need to please mommy and daddy anymore. You don't need to form relationships based around repetition, compulsion, these patterns that you've been repeating for eons, right? You can bring all of yourself back to you, be in your own frame, your own sense of self, validate yourself, approve of yourself, love yourself. You don't need to please mommy and daddy. You can develop your own sense of understanding for yourself and for life and for your morals and for your values. And you don't just have to, jump on the fucking bandwagon of what people tell you you should be valuing, or, you know, whatever your morals should be. You get to develop your own sense of self. And the coolest part about that is stepping into the unknown and just really allowing yourself to be by yourself, and to like whatever the fuck you like and dislike whatever the fuck you dislike, understand your own needs and everything. um, I'm going to equate authenticity to comfort and familiarity, based in repetition compulsion, based in family of origin, based in likely enmeshment here, because that's what this is about. And I'm going to challenge the shit out of everything everyone believes to be true about themselves, about who they are, about what they do, about life. Because there's just a really good fucking chance that none of it is actually accurate.